So, this is the first marketing update for 2024, and this could be a big one. It probably is the most important year in crypto's history ever. So, we'll see. We'll see. This is especially this week that is coming up. We're expecting an announcement on the ETF also. And we don't know, of course, it's going to be positive or negative. I did a whole separate video on this and the scenarios and what I'm seeing on the chart and how I'm going to play it. But overall, I think it's definitely a pivotal moment in the history of crypto. But before we talk more specifically about the plans for this year, how I'm personally going to approach the markets, let's just do a quick review of what happened last year and also what I think were my biggest mistakes from last year and how I'm planning to avoid at least some of them this year and how I believe I'll be better prepared for this potential bull run that we might have. And as always, we can start with a very, very high level picture. This is Bitcoin's 12-month chart. And as you can see, we closed 2023 with a massive 155% candle. I honestly wasn't expecting it, not this much at least. I was expecting something like this, so at least, to get like a wick here in, what was this, 2019. So I was hoping for something like this, but we didn't really get this. We just got a, massive green dildo here, which is great. And obviously with the narrative in play, I think it kind of makes sense. And if we go down to the monthly, you'll see that, again, this last year was pretty much perfect, picture perfect. If I could ask for a perfect year, probably this is how it would look like, because we had right from the start very green months in a row. We came out of this, accumulation of the low zone that we were in. We didn't have another leg down after the massive event of FTX collapsing. We broke out of this accumulation range, and then we just had a few retracements that we were buying along the way. So the first one was here around 20K, and then somewhere around 25K. We made this beautiful range, which was pretty clean to trade, I would say also. So very, very good price action. Not only that was going up only pretty much, but just price wise, I think things were looking very, very good. And now, as you can see, we closed the year on a fourth straight month of green. So this, I think, is quite massive. And if we go back in the history, you'll see that last time this happened was somewhere around here. So again, same scenario as we were going out of accumulation and in potential bull run. And then as the bull run really, really kicked off in 2020, you see that we have massive candles, really parabolic action, but we had like 6 months of straight green. So these were the last couple of times we had this much green action in a row on the monthly chart. And of course here, after we kind of came out of this accumulation, but as you can see, this was a doji. We had a nice washout here, and here there's no wicks pretty much, just up only. And I think this is all because of the pricing in of the narrative of the ETF. And if you remember, here in the 27/8, we had the fake news. We pumped right onto it, and then as you can see, we never looked back. So it could be said that the price has already reflected the news that we are expecting. If it's positive, always, of course. If it's not, we gonna nuke really hard. But that's fairly low percentage-wise probability. But still, I don't completely disregard it. But it seems like we have kind of priced in. But if we look back again into the bull run, you see that these could get much bigger candles much faster, even on the monthly. So on the positive catalyst, I wouldn't be surprised if we pump really, really hard. Even 50, 60K, I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibilities. Am I betting on this? For sure not. The way I play this, and if we jump to the weekly, once we had this, in my opinion, kind of extended move here, I started taking some profit. So I took some profit, if I remember correctly, was somewhere around 38K. I took around 10%. And then in this area, I took another 10 or 20% from my Bitcoin holdings. I switched around some Bitcoin for Ethereum. And then I'm keeping most of my outs, and I did take a few stabs at shorter term trades here and there. But right now, in the past few weeks, action has been looking good. We've been kind of accumulating in this zone that we've talked extensively about. And honestly, if we jump to the daily, I don't see anything worrying on the chart. We just shrugged off this massive candle that on the day it was down. So we were just hanging around this level, and when the thought came that maybe the SEC will delay the announcement on Bitcoin, this was a 10% candle. Some outs got like 30 to 40% candles on the day, but the market really shrugged it off. And as you can see with the close, it's just a perfect structure of higher highs and higher lows. And even this last leg here, so if we take this for example, so we had the high here, and then we had the higher low here, and then another higher high, and now here we have another higher low. And if you just look at the structure, even at some of the candles like this one, you see that there's buying pressure, in my opinion, at least. And everyone's kind of preparing for a positive outcome. And you can clearly see this on the chart. Not many people are considering we want to get an ETF approval. So this is what's causing me to pretty much stay in most of my positions right now. I do keep Matic, Magic, although these look really bad. At some point, they had their initial pushes very late into the whole price action. For example, Magic, as you can see, it broke out of this area, had nice little structure, and now it's shifting back to more negative structure, or at least it's lagging compared to some other projects like Arbitrum and Optimism, for example. So I still haven't cut any of these positions in order to get a little bit more cash into my portfolio in case we get a dip, even after a few weeks. But I might consider doing this. GMX, same story. It broke out, then it's breaking down again. Matic also, kind of disappointing fake out here, while a lot of the market has been pretty much, making new highs, or at least testing at resistance. So I'm still keeping all of this, but again, we'll see how it plays out in the coming days. And I'm just really patient. But honestly, talking about my mistakes from last year, I think this was probably one of the biggest one that I had, especially GMX, Matic, and Magic. These were all the three, or most of the tokens that I accumulated, or most of the size that I accumulated was within these three. STG is the next one, but STG is a little bit of a different play. I've discussed this already. It's more of an airdrop, and I'm staking them. And I think STG is very undervalued also. So, I'm okay with this one, and I'm pretty much at break even here on STG. But all these three, if I just had bought Bitcoin, I would have outperformed the market. So if we just go to a quick Matic BTC chart, you'll see that I started buying Matic. I don't remember, beginning and like middle of last year, and since then it hasn't really done much since against Bitcoin. You can see that we've been just chopping around this range up and down, but nothing really major. We haven't had a breakout there. It's not a clear structure here on the chart. And if I have just bought Bitcoin, I would have outperformed, because this position for me is at least at 10 or 15% down for now, because my cost average is somewhere around $1. I was buying, here and here, so this is even from 2022 position maybe. So I've been buying, here and there, but you can see that it's been just painful to watch this chart. And definitely, I could have done better with my picks. And I could say this for a lot of things. For example, IMX is also one that I bought for a trade, but it was somewhere around here. Then I played around with shorting it around 60 cents, made some money on the way down, lost some money when I was trying to buy this at support here and it broke down. But if I just kept buying it and accumulating it like some of these other projects that I did anyway for do this, IMX, I did believe that was a good project back then. I know it's a good project now, and they've been developing very well, and you can see what happened after that. So even of a cost basis somewhere around, let's say, $1, I would still be in profit like 2x. And that's without that much effort, just because this coin has been doing well and it's been in the right narrative and they've been doing the right things. And although Matic technically is also doing the right things, they're actually in partnership with IMX for this specific example. So it made sense that Matic should have been doing well, but it's not. And I think one of the main reasons is that it has massive market cap. It has a lot of competition already. And I believe that the back holders are keeping Matic down. And actually, this is one of the rules that I broke with Matic specifically, that I don't usually like accumulating back holder coins, meaning older coins from previous cycles, but I made an exception for Matic. At the same time, I didn't accumulate Solana. I was going back and forth with Solana. I had some from the highs. I never sold it. My cost average from previous cycle was like $5. I wrote most of it. I took a lot of profit out. I left a really small Solana position. At some point, I was claiming publicly Solana is the next Ethereum. At some points, I did sell out of my Solana. Probably was around maybe $50. I don't remember. Somewhere around here, I think. Then we see this massive capitulation, and then price did pretty much nothing for a while, and it was shaping this beautiful pattern here. I saw it on the chart, saw it around $30. I was talking about this also on videos, and it had like a big green day or two, and I didn't take the breakout because I thought the risk to reward didn't make sense here. It was somewhere around this area, and it was 35% risk to the pivot low here, just because it had a couple of big green days. And as you can see, this is also, I consider, one of the mistakes, because this coin was on my radar and I just didn't do anything about it based on many different things. And the ecosystem of Solana has been blowing up recently. Really, really good one. And there are quite a few trades that I missed, like, for example, I've discussed this with you guys in chat. Vulcan Forged, I didn't manage to move my assets to an exchange that has Vulcan Forged on time. And I was looking at it. Let me just go on the daily because it's a much better chart. But we were having this really beautiful accumulation pattern. We tested the range several times and we were at the bottom of the range. And I know some of you took this trade, and I was looking at this somewhere around here, and it was just 10% risk. So imagine, perfect trade to the top of the range was around 73%, but as you can see, this thing is still flying at 145% from my entry. Link, another similar perfect accumulation range. I had some here, or here, I don't remember where, but again, I bought at the bottom of the range. Then I cut it at some profit because chart wasn't looking that good. But then it just, it just played out as the chart suggested that this will play out. And in general, we can list a bunch of trades like this that I didn't go well. Obviously, we took the big winners like Bitcoin, Ethereum. We did also quite well. I did extremely well on Ordinals, and I do believe it's still the beginning of this part of the market. But there are a lot of trades like this one, like, for example, even Big Time. I did take Big Time as a trade, but wasn't patient enough and didn't see this little accumulation, although my cost was extremely low here. And then it made like a 6 or 7x. Now it's in full retrace mode, but doesn't matter because the missed gains here were like, I don't know, 4 or 5x for sure. Easy 4 or 5x because it was kind of an obvious play. What else? A lot of mistakes. I wanted to share also on GMX something, because GMX is an interesting one. I admit I did, probably this was one of the biggest mistakes, if not the biggest one, because I didn't follow my plan here. I took a breakout trade because, last year and the year before that, we had terrible breakout year. So if you're a breakout trader, probably the worst year to trade. And I decided to take a stab at GMX for a breakout trade. And I did add to my accumulation back here, but it fell apart and I never cut this position here. This specific one, not the accumulation one or the entire one. This specific one I didn't cut. It did never bounce, so it did never like give an exit signal, something like this. It just kept breaking down and breaking down. So definitely I didn't risk manage this one. The size was okay, so I'm not losing sleep over the size that I'm still in this. But as you can see, it's just painful, painful. What was that? More than half a year, so 8 to 10 months on this one. So plenty of mistakes, and I think the last one that I want to discuss, which will piggyback on my plans for this year, is definitely I didn't have enough diversification into the coins that I was accumulating. Because from coming from a bull market, I had like 30 plus tokens in my portfolio, and I was like, okay, maybe this would be a bit too much in the future. Although, I was feeling okay with the size of the numbers of tokens that I have. But then I came down to like 4 or 5 positions that I was holding through the last year or so, except of course for Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I'm not that good of a picker, and I don't think anybody is that good of a crypto picker that will always pick winners. And if you have a little bit more tokens in your portfolio, the chances that you're going to get one that is a 10x or whatever is much higher. And I didn't give myself that type of chance for the last year or so, because there were some big winners, and obviously Solana is one of them, but there are quite a few more that came out to the scene and did very well. And I think I could have had a better chance of taking one, because I've been doing the work. I've done the research, and some of the tokens like Say, for example, which is quite a recent one, but still, I did the work. I was eyeing an entry on this and never pulled the trigger, and then it just pulled like a 3 or 4x. I was looking at it somewhere around here, probably. Yeah, so 200% up from this position. So I'll probably be accumulating a bit more, not only on size already, because last few years I was mainly focused when it comes to size on Bitcoin and Ethereum. But now I'm willing to decrease my Bitcoin and Ethereum exposure and slowly get into smaller tokens. And I would have risk exposure in many different ways. But when it comes to my what I call boomer crypto portfolio, so just tokens that I'm looking into and researching, I would definitely have some two buckets. So except for Bitcoin and Ethereum, I would have positions that I like and I believe have very good potential. I would try to keep them. The biggest of tokens that I'm looking into are around 1 to 2 billion in market cap, and then so some of these include. Let me just give you the things that I'm eyeing. Arbitrum, Beam, Lido, Tia, I already entered with some size, mainly for the airdrops, but still I'm probably going to increase my size here. Say is one, Caspa, currently correcting. Then I have STG, Pendo, Radiant Capital, 0x0 is one that I'm looking into, a Cash Network, Flip. What else? Maybe a meme coin like Pepe, GMX potentially might stay, Magic, BitTensor, Tau, and that's not including all of the gaming stuff that I'm still in, like researching heavily, and a lot of games are not even out yet. But there will be a lot of gaming in my portfolio. Like for example, Beam is one, but something like Wagmi Games or Gfall or Nakamoto Games, Miria, I'll probably have quite a lot of exposure. And then on the smaller cap side, I do have, and these, keep in mind, these are tokens like under $100 million of market cap. So anything between 10 and 50 is perfect. But even if it's a little bit more, and if it's a worthy project, I'll look into it. So I currently do have Butterfly, which is redacted cartel. I do have Shido, which I've been, talking about, and it's been doing extremely well. So this is Shido in the last few days. I'm already up for my entry. I didn't get enough size into this. I'm already up like 5x. But potentially on a retrace, because I don't think this is sustainable, I'll be looking into adding, because even at this prices here, this is still at below 50 million market cap. So keep this in mind. And as you can see, you can do the math. If this gets to 100 or 300 million, it's pretty good, and it's still very small token. So I want to have something like Statter, which is liquid staking, Banana Gun, Imagine AI, Dubs is one that I'm also very close to entering. Just want to see what's going to happen with the ETF stuff, but this chart is looking pretty good now, correcting the last few days. I'm also looking into blockchain bets. BCB is the ticker here on this one. This is like not trading, but gambling platform similar to Rollbit. It's a really small token, though. It's probably less than $20 million market cap, if I remember correctly. Had a nice range here, and it just broke out, and now it's correcting. But I still think I want to have some exposure to this, and Rollbit is very profitable and quite expensive still, but maybe I'll get into Rollbit if it gets a little bit cheaper. And then there's a token called KG or AG, depending on the platform you're trading it. It's called Delysium. This is something like gaming/AI. Chart doesn't look great, but very interesting project. So definitely go look into it. There's a Carbon browser, which is something like a Brave browser at really low valuation. Again, chart is looking very good, but I will be looking into such kind of place. This is not the chart full history on this one. And slowly but surely, I will be accumulating through the year. So this is my plan. I will probably focus more than 50% of my attention to ordinals, because I think the risk to reward there is immensely better to anything right now. Honestly, I think we're going to see crazy multiples on ordinals in the coming months, just because just recently the Ethereum NFT guys started coming to the ordinal space, and the potential there is in the in, I cannot even calculate it because it's going to be a lot of speculation, obviously, but the collections are still not that overpriced, in my opinion, far from it. And the volume is still not there compared to Ethereum when it was, peaking in a bull market. So I do believe that a lot of these blue chip collections that I've been, beating the drum about are going to have crazy multiples. And we're going to see a lot of development. Like just recently, the NAT tokens will be in the indexed any day now, and we're just gonna see crazy stuff. And I think this is the best alpha probably in all of crypto, and that's why I'm going to be focusing most of my time. And what I want to do with my boomer crypto, I just want to do the research, wrap up whatever I can do, and just start accumulating slowly but surely some of my favorite projects and let the rest of it take care of itself. Obviously, the risks here are huge, and I could be losing a lot of money on this side of the portfolio. But I kind of like my alts, and I'm not jumping into it just yet. As I said, we might get a recession in Q1 or Q2. There are a whole bunch of stuff that might happen, and I'm just going to be going it slowly. Okay, enough of me rambling. Let me see what questions do we have. And let's go start from the back, because I see some Ordinals related questions. So why are Ordinals so much better for risk to reward, as you mentioned? Well, because the market size overall is pretty small. So let me just do the math. But a Bitcoin frog right now is let's say 0.2 Bitcoin, which is at current prices around let's say $9,000 times 10,000, which is the size of the collection. That's $88 million in valuation, which currently is less, but let's say $90 million. This has a lot of potential, in my opinion, like a 10x potential for this collection. And I'm already up a lot on Bitcoin frogs, and I do believe these will go down a lot very soon. So probably even another 50% from here. So for me, that's an easy 10x that I know the market of, and I'm not afraid to buy a frog at 0.1 Bitcoin, for example. And that's even the high risk play in the space, in my opinion, because currently there are tokens minting and new projects that you can get whitelists for. And I just minted a few cyberpunks are called, which cost me like for 3 punks I paid less than $100. and potentially the return on these will be massive. So if you do the work and if you find those projects and those tokens that they're going to be launching and minting, most of them in the space are free to mint. So you just pay the inscription costs. And there will be a lot more coming. And also there will be a lot of airdrops. So if you hold a frog, you'll be getting a lot of airdrops, which, you know, make the overall thesis for the space very simple. And if we get a Bitcoin ETF, keep in mind, this is the Bitcoin blockchain. It's the mother chain, you know, so there are a lot of narratives lining up for Ordinals and for the tokens. It's going to be huge. And for example, one of my favorite tokens in the space, which is called Track, they got like $4 million in financing. They are building currently a lot of things in the ecosystem, and they're still not listed on exchanges like Binance. They still haven't really built the backend that they want to for DeFi on Bitcoin. And if this happens, this token currently is sitting at around $100 million valuation. And imagine Track is the project that brings DeFi into Bitcoin. Just go back in time and see what happened with Ethereum at that time. And you can do the math. So that's why I'm saying, you know, this is probably one of the best opportunities. Does Magic Eden require KYC? No, though this is a trading platform, so you just like OpenSea. So you just connect your wallet. It's a Web3 wallet based. You need an Xverse for the Bitcoin stuff or a Unisat wallet, and you can trade here without KYC. So next few questions, because I saw quite a few of them. So Cardano, is it a buy or no? Let me see. Cardano's chart. I haven't looked into it. So this in general doesn't fall into my rules. So it's had a cycle. It's a layer one. It's not really hyped one. So I personally wouldn't be buying. And as you can see here on the weekly, it just got rejected from quite a significant level after it had, you know, on the daily, an attempt to break out. Now it's in a correction mode. I would personally, if you're really a Cardano believer, I would at least wait for price to stabilize somewhere. So maybe around 40 cents is the next level that I see. And then decide if I want to be holding this token, or you're in a position like me where I do have, for example, Matic, but I think it will be underperforming. So maybe you want to put your money into something else. It's up to you to decide. Okay, next one. You're quite bullish on Ordinals. Are they not similar to the NFTs that have gone, that have done a lot of, I would say? Okay, yeah. In technicality, they're very different. So NFTs are JPEGs that are stored on a server somewhere, let's say in AWS server. And you just get a link on the blockchain that says you have this picture. While Ordinals are inscribed into a Satoshi, so the smallest part of Bitcoin, and they are on the blockchain. So it's different, but you know, nobody probably will care for this when the masses come into the market. But yeah, it's art, it's culture on the Bitcoin network, and that's why people are loving it, and that's why I'm quite bullish on it. Okay, is it too late to get into Arbitrum? Well, I don't think so, honestly. Arbitrum is not that expensive right now, even compared to Optimism. So it's at about, let me just check because I left these markers so I can do it. But it's around 2.4 billion valuation right now, which I don't believe it's too expensive. But if you look at the chart, it just had an all-time high breakout and a retest. So I wouldn't even blame you if you get an entry here. I actually was considering switching my Matic into Arbitrum. So honestly, I don't think it's not a bad moment to start entering. But if you go on the weekly, it's been on a tear. So, and of course, we have the ETF stuff and probably a sell the news event or, you know, something. So I'm not against it. I will actually want to have more Arbitrum exposure because I don't have any right now except for the ecosystem tokens like GMX and Magic and somewhat STG. Um, so yeah, I think it's up to you to decide when to enter, but definitely long term could be a good play. Solana, I think right now it's quite overvalued after, especially after the run. So I do expect to have a correction on this. It's already correcting from the $120 highs, but probably a little bit more is in place. I did buy some Solana, to be honest, but it's for an NFT play, which is very degenerate. So yeah, I would be a little bit more patient with Solana to see if the trend reverses here, because I think it's still quite overvalued after, if you go on the weekly, just look at this chart. There's been no retracement whatsoever. This is the first retracement. So even if we use the FIB tool, we can do something like this. So maybe if we get into the 60s, that would be great. I think 60 is a buy, but even like 70, 80, I think could be a good spot, especially lining up with some support area. So we gotta see. I don't know how bad the situation could get. And I think we're due for a few boring months, so I think you'll have plenty of opportunity to enter. What device do you use for cold storage? I have a Ledger, but here fought every week. Yeah, Ledger. They've been doing weird stuff. But I do have a Ledger. I think Trezor is a good device. I know there's another one that's new, but I think with those two, you're safe. I honestly don't keep that much on my Ledger, so I would definitely recommend a Trezor as a better option. Are you full-time crypto trader or do you have a normal job? I do have a normal job still. I like it. I have this as a hobby, so no stress at all. I do it in my free time. But I still haven't gone full the gen mode. Maybe someday. Okay, let's see some more questions. What is your take on the next all-time high for Bitcoin and Ethereum? So I have a couple of theories here. I'll make this quick. So specifically for Bitcoin, uh, technically, if we get a ETF, everybody's saying, oh, we're gonna go to the moon, we're gonna go to hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it kind of makes sense. But the question is when. So I do see a scenario, and I've talked about this in previous videos. I do see a scenario where we chop around here, and this is the bull run for the next few years. It's still a bull run. Don't get me wrong. We'll probably get crazy multiples on outs, but I do believe this is possible. Although I have a chart here that I can show you now. If you see, this is gold on the left and this is Bitcoin right now. So if you see this chart here on the green arrow on November 18, 2004, there was the launch of the trading of the first ever gold ETF, but that was the when it started trading on the market. However, it probably got approved somewhere around here. So there was still a push, but as you can see, most of the chart is just purely chop, like we are right now. And I do expect this to continue in the coming months, probably. And once it got approved, it started flying, big correction, and then it just took from here on. So I don't know if the scenario that I'm talking here for this part is the most probable, but I do think we might not see an all-time high as soon as possible, and I'm like preparing for such kind of scenario. So just keep this in mind. And of course, the dealer scenario is the one we talked about just here, on the gold chart. And I do think we could also here see something like a massive pump to all-time high, a correction, and then we just, slowly climb towards 100K and above. We'll see. Keep in mind that once we get an ETF, there will be a lot more bots and a lot more logarithmic trading on Bitcoin. There has already been a ton of bots trading it, but just keep this in mind. Last question, we're gonna wrap it up. Optimism, is it a good buy? In my opinion, it's slightly overvalued here, but it's been a beast. It's been doing great things since pretty much $1.50. Arbitrum is currently cheaper and has more adoption, more total value locked, more users. But Optimism has been doing very well, and you just cannot deny this. I think the valuation is close to 4 billion right now, with Arbitrum sitting at 2.5 billion. So, just pick your poison, but whichever of these two you choose, I think both are long-term, very, very good options for the layer 2 narrative. That's, of course, my opinion. I'm not buying optimism here, although it's been, again, breakout on all-time high, retest, and it's holding. So I cannot blame anyone that buys here. But for me, personally, I would not buy it right here. Not optimism, mainly because of the market cap and the difference between Arbitrum and optimism. Yeah, that's it. I think we had a good one. Very long, but very fun. I hope you guys found it useful and, found something for yourself in my mistakes and my future plans. And yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Bye.